Hey everyone, how's it going? So, I didn't think I'd make this video so quickly, but I couldn't help it. I was just so interested to see whether or not I was right that in a solo run, Nidoqueen is better than Nidoking. Now, if you're familiar with Pokemon Red and Blue speedruns, you'll know that Nidoking is the Pokemon of choice. However, I don't know if the reasons for Nidoking in those runs will affect us. According to Speedrun Legends Shenanigans, one of the first speedrunners I ever watched by the way, there are a few reasons Nidoking is chosen over Nidoqueen. The first relates to the fact that as a Nidoran at level 8 it gets Horn Attack, while Nidoran Female gets Scratch. Thankfully for us that won't matter, we start with a base 85 Body Slam. The other reason is that Thrash is slightly better on Nugget Bridge than Body Slam, which still will affect us. Finally, if we compare their base stats, Nidoking is slightly faster with a slightly better attack. Now you'd think in a speedrun where they use items it wouldn't matter so much, but they naturally outspeed Jinx at the level they're at, while Nidoqueen will not. For us, I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem because we go out of our way to find rare candies, and thus we're at a much higher level than the speedrun would be, since we're going for a bit more consistency with the sacrifice of speed being made. So if that's why Nidoking is better in the speedrun, why in the world do I think Nidoqueen will be better in the solo run? Well, let's look at Nidoqueen's stats. They're pretty decent, and the most important thing is that its special is the same as Nidoking's. Not fantastic, but base 75 proved to be good enough. The other thing though that Nidoqueen has going for it, amazing move pool, but so did Nidoking. What Nidoqueen uniquely has going for it is Tail Whip. I'm not kidding. Tail Whip is the difference, and if Nidoqueen ends up with a better time, literally one of the most useless moves might be why. How is Tail Whip so game-breaking? Well, it's not just Tail Whip actually. So looking at the Brock battle, I actually get really bad luck here. But the idea is to use Body Slam and get a paralysis. Brock has 5 full heals, and every time he uses a full heal, he's not attacking. So, ideally, with the 30% chance of getting a paralysis, we might stop Brock from using Defense Curl and have a really easy time. That's actually not what ended up happening, but thankfully we got a lot of crits. Now, this is another area Nidoking is better. Higher base speed equals more critical hits, but we got enough of them that we're able to knock out Geodude, and now against Onix, I can just spam Tail Whip. Unfortunately, I messed up and ran out of Body Slams, so I could have done this battle even faster, but Scratch, the move that speedrunners hate, actually was good enough once you use 6 Tail Whips, and somewhat shockingly, we had a first try victory versus Brock. Remember, with Nidoking, not only was it not a first try victory, but we had to level up one more time. So Nidoqueen is going to be ahead. However, after this point, Nidoking has a slight advantage. I say slight because remember, while Thrash is more powerful than Body Slam, it can only last between 3 to 4 turns before it confused my Nidoking. For Nidoqueen, Body Slam is more reliable, but it is lower base power, and more importantly, my base attack is 10 lower. So that's going to make a difference and might cause some ranges to be unfavorable. I still should be fine versus Rival 2. The only thing we really don't want to see is Sand Attack from Pidgeotto. It outspeeds, that's fine, but Body Slam isn't a 2-shot. This is exactly what we were talking about. And now I'm just missing with every attack. Now well, not right away, we knock out Abra, next comes out Rattata, it outspeeds with Quick Attack, so out priorities, but then comes out Squirtle. We have so many opportunities to knock it out, and yet due to Sand Attack we don't and we lose. So that's really annoying, and I believe had we used Nidoking, we would have been fine, assuming we got Mega Punch, which we actually didn't, which for the record might have been the wrong call. Anyway, this battle goes a far bit smoother. That even a way you can speak? A far bit smoother? Far smoother or a bit smoothly? Anyway, we're gonna learn English later. For now, we beat Rival 2. Hooray! But something else, and this is a bit of a mistake on my end, because we don't have Horn Attack, I have Poison Sting and Water Gun, And why that's important is that we either would have to use Scratch, which is a 2-hit KO, or we're going to have to go back to the Pokemon Center to get back Body Slam. Either way, we're wasting a little bit of time. And while it's just a small bit of time, remember, Nidoqueen only has about a 7-minute lead, so every minute really does matter. Okay, after we beat all of Nugget Bridge and routes 23 and 24, I have to battle Misty. We've talked about this before, but essentially, without Misty, no cut, without cut, no surge, without surge, no fly, and that would be bad. Speaking of bad, Misty doesn't go super well my first time, and is going to take a couple attempts. I mean, Nidoqueen is slower, and it takes a couple hits to knock out Staryu, and it takes at least 3 hits to knock out Starmie, giving it plenty of opportunities to attack me. I wanted to try the battle just one more time before I battled the Team Rocket member for some more experience points, and this time we get a Paralysis and an X-Defend. So not only do we win, but we actually won with a ton of HP, which is really, really nice, and it also means I don't have to heal at the Pokemon Center, which saves a ton of time. Now, I know some of you might be thinking that's unfair, you got lucky. However, Nidoking couldn't have gotten lucky in the same way because we wouldn't have Body Slam yet, and the strategy, which is what I was thinking, only works if we paralyze due to Body Slam. I mean, I was hoping it wouldn't attack. So I really do think it was unique to Nidoqueen, but again, had it not worked, I would have just battled the Team Rocket member and hoped I would outsped, and maybe even the trainer in Misty's gym. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Alright, so I am still gonna go get Body Slam just in case I want to delete it and reteach it. It gives me an option to do that. This might be me overthinking things a little bit, but it doesn't waste that much time. So now we battle Rival 3, and it goes pretty darn easy. Unfortunately, the first battle, I forgot to use the ether I pick up from the fence near Bill's house, so I actually have to reset. So the run has been a little messier than previous, and the reason I don't have power points is I didn't heal because we didn't have to because of the way the Misty fight went. But with the ether, we actually get a crit on Pidgeotto and on Raticate. We don't need a crit on Kadabra. And then for Wartortle, we're going to use Body Slam, but after we defeat the Lieutenant Surge, we'll have Thunderbolt. And that's going to go pretty well. Speaking of Lieutenant Surge, he wasn't as much of a joke, and this is due to our slightly lower base attack. Nidoqueen wasn't able to one-shot Voltorb, while Nidoking would have. We don't outspeed Pikachu, that's just due to quick attack, and we do one-shot Raichu due to a critical hit. So we're actually getting really good critical hit luck. Again, neither of these Pokemon can learn Dig. That would be super, super useful. But after we get Thunderbolt, we actually will start to use that instead of Body Slam. For Nidoking, Body Slam was the most powerful move, especially with the badge boost. For Nidoqueen, because Thunderbolt itself is 10 base power higher, all things equal, it actually usually makes sense to go for that. Now, normally I would skip ahead to Celadon, but something bad happened in Rock Tunnel. The hiker? No. Well, kinda, but actually, this junior trainer with 2 grass Pokemon that I almost never talk about, we weren't able to one-shot her Oddish, and I didn't buy a Paralysis Heal because I didn't anticipate this. We don't have Ice Beam yet, and so we either have to dig out of Rock Tunnel and go back to the Pokemon Center, which would waste time, or we're gonna have to battle the hiker while paralyzed and hope we outspeed. We actually don't outspeed, if you can believe it, but that's okay. Rock Throw, we resist, and Self-Destruct doesn't actually do that much damage, because while Nidoqueen does have worse base stats in attack and speed, it gets those stats back in HP and defense. So that might actually help us out in different ways later in the run, being able to tank moves that Nidoking possibly couldn't have. Not normally useful for a solo run where you're trying to go fast, but who knows. Certainly it helped here. However, the fact all 3 of the hiker's Pokemon got to attack me means these battles went a lot slower. So, kind of a problem. With that said, thankfully, there really aren't any more Pokemon that are specifically difficult for Nidoqueen, and it had an unbelievably easy time with Giovanni. With Bubble Beam, we can knock out both the Onix and the Rhyhorn, and Kangaskhan is actually weaker to Thunderbolt than it would be to Body Slam, because its special is so low, so we were able to knock it out with 2 hits, and then we can go shopping, where I'm going to do something a little different that might make up for Nidoqueen's worst base attack once and for all. For Nidoking, I bought proteins to boost its attack, which made a lot of sense because Earthquake is a base 100 power move, and it's super powerful. However, since Nidoqueen's special is about as high as its attack, and we do use it a whole lot, and it serves a defensive purpose, I'm going to go ahead and buy calciums, which I almost did do for Nidoking. I think I made the right decision for Nidoking, but for Nidoqueen, I think this is the right call and will give Nidoqueen certain advantages going forward that Nidoking didn't have. Now, those advantages won't be felt versus Rival 4 because Rival 4 is a total joke, and fun fact, I actually forgot to use the calciums, so it really didn't matter. Anyway, because I always talk about this battle, we start with Thunderbolt, 1 shot, we level up, Bubble Beam next, we knock it out, then Ice Beam, knock out Execute, we use Body Slam to knock out Kadabra, and then Thunderbolt 1-shots Wartortle. We do have Rock Slide, I'm just going to use Thunderbolt against the Ghastlies, and we're not going to talk about that too much. We're going to move on, and just like last time, I end up digging back to Celadon on accident, so we'll battle Erika next, and I don't believe she'll be too challenging now that we have Ice Beam. As always, she leads with Victory Bell, Ice Beam doesn't one-shot, we get a lucky freeze, that's kind of useful. We level up, Tangela is a one-shot, Vileplume isn't, but it goes for Petal Dance, and that does next to nothing. I don't think I've used my calciums yet here either, which I don't think would have made a huge difference, but it's worth noting that's just how good Nidoqueen is. Now, just like last time, I'm going to fly back to Celadon in order to walk to Saffron, and there, I'm going to go up to the 10th floor, battle this extra trainer, and once we defeat him, we'll get a Carbos, a rare candy, but most important of all, TM26 Earthquake. Yes, our attack isn't as good as Nidoking, but it's still good, and we are still ground type, so having the ability to use Earthquake will be super helpful. Unlike last time, I have no interest in trying to battle Rival 5 yet. I don't think it's going to go well. In fact, I haven't even battled the Team Rocket member. I'll do that later. I go to Koga's gym, after going through the Safari Zone, of course, and I actually thought these jugglers would give me a harder time than they did, but Earthquake one-shots Drowsy. And the only one it didn't one-shot is Hypno, and I have a Super Potion, so I'm just going to skip right ahead to Koga. And if you saw the Nidoking run, I'm pretty sure it's going to go identically. We do one-shot Coughing. We do one-shot Muck. We one-shot Coughing again. And now, here's the moment of truth. We don't get a crit, so we don't one-shot Wheezing and self-destruct, but Nidoqueen is even bulkier than Nidoking, so easy first try victory. I think that was identical to how the battle went with Nidoking. That's pretty funny. Now I'm going to head back to Sylph Company. I could go to Cinnabar and Blaine would be pretty easy, but I think Rival 5 will be pretty easy as well. And let's see if I'm right. As always, he leads with Pidgeot. It actually can't attack us. Oh, wait, it doesn't use agility? Okay, that's weird. Anyway, we knock it out. Next comes out Growlithe. We knock it out in 1 hit. We have Ice Beam for Execute. We knock it out in 1 hit. And do we outspeed the Alakazam? We do. We also one-shot. And so Blastoise doesn't have Surf or Hydro Pump. We use Thunderbolt. It's going to be a 2 KO. Critical hit doesn't even matter. We still knock it out easily. And we're also going to beat Giovanni pretty easily. In fact, as I battle the Rocket and then Giovanni, I'll answer a question some of you are wondering. J-Rose, why didn't you do the double episode thing you did last time? So honestly, a couple reasons if you want me to be perfectly honest. And the answer is, I just didn't like how that episode turned out. I really do love giving each Pokemon its own individual episode and its time in the sun, and to be honest, I think it's useful to give viewers a choice whether you want to watch one or the other, and I'm going to be also honest about this, I actually do like the shorter episodes. Now, I don't know how short this episode's going to be, I haven't finished it yet. For all we know, it's an hour-long one. But the point still stands, by giving each Pokemon its own individual time, unless they're so identical that I have nothing different to say about each of them, I don't know, I think it works, but let me know in the comments, because I do plan to do middle evolutions, and you might be able to convince me to do Nidorino and Nidorina in the same episode because they're way more similar than Nidoking and Nidoqueen in my opinion. I mean, they are pretty similar, so let me know about that. I know other channels like to do double episodes. I don't know, it's just not something I really enjoyed the first time around, but I'm definitely open to feedback here. Anyway, what I'm not open to feedback on, because this is being pre-recorded so you can't provide feedback, is where I'm going to go next. The answer? I'm going to go to Cinnabar. I mean, you probably already knew that. Actually, it's not even technically true. I go to Fuchsia and get Strength. Then I go to Cinnabar. So if you said Cinnabar, ha, you were wrong. But yeah, I think Blaine's going to be pretty easy. It should be 3 one-shots with Earthquake, but let's see. We don't know. As always, he leads with Growlithe, and we're going to go for Earthquake, and we're going to knock it out. So that's 1. 2 against Ponyta. 3, we outsped Rapidash. That's a good sign. Oh, well, that kind of stinks. We outsped Arcanine. We didn't knock it out, but we level up. But that battle was a little concerning. The fact we didn't one-shot Arcanine, not a great sign. And I'm also worried about the fact we might not outspeed Alakazam. But I literally have no other trainers that I want to battle, so let's hope we do. Okay, so she leads with the best Pokemon of all time, and we outspeed and go for Earthquake. No surprise. We then outspeed Mr. Mime, we outspeed and one-shot Venomoth, and Psywave, that's not good. We one-shot, that's nice, but we didn't outspeed, that's bad. That could end up being a problem versus Rivals 6 and the champion, but for now we get to battle Giovanni number 3, and that's going to be pretty easy. Okay, so he leads with Rhyhorn, we still have Bubble Beam, we knock it out, pretty good. Dugtrio outspeeds, but Guard Spec is nothing, so we knock it out. I accidentally go for Ice Beam, and we freeze Nidoqueen. Whatever. I do actually click on Earthquake and knock out Nidoking in one hit. And because we have Bubble Beam, we can easily one-shot Rhydon, and we level up to level 47. That's good. Because as we learned in the Nidoking battle, we're probably going to need to use rare candies. In fact, I'm going to do that right away. Now, you might say, well, that's unfair, J-Rose. That's going to make it faster. Well, no. That's why we use in-game time as opposed to real time. Because in in-game time, we save and we reset. So it really makes little difference if I have to try 2 or 3 or 4 times. It's the same in in-game time. So, we're going to use rare candies, and we're going to skip ahead, and we're going to battle Rival 6. Alright, so he leads with Pidgeot. It should just go for agility. We one-shot, so it goes for nothing. Rhyhorn, we still have Bubble Beam. We could teach Surf, but whatever, we knock it out. I go for Earthquake. Better be safe than sorry. I go for Ice Beam. One-shots Execute. And then, no. Okay, well, we got the crit, but that's really bad. Oh, no. Okay. Okay, so much to unpack there. So, we don't outspeed, and we got a really lucky crit. And then, we are very bulky in our special, so we tanked the Hydro Pump, which is excellent. So, there's good, and there's bad. There's fun times to be had. I don't know why I said that, but there are scary times really to be had. Lorelei and the champion. Those are the only 2 fights I'm worried about. Everything else is going to be a total joke in my opinion. But unless I want to spend a really long time leveling up, I'm just going to skip all the trainers in battle. There's one more rare candy we get in Victory Road, but hopefully this works. I have my doubts. Unfortunately, I think this is where Nidoking is going to take the lead, but let's see. So Lorelei, as always, leads off with Dugong. I'm going to go for Thunderbolt, and we get a crit. Pretty good. Now against Cloyster, Super Potion. It could have gone for Clamp. So that's 2 down, still no damage. Against Slowbro, we go for Thunderbolt. It goes for Water Gun. Not a big deal. 160 HP. Now against Jinx, we need to outspeed, which we do, and Earthquake one-shots. And now against Lapras, we outspeed. That doesn't even do half, and Blizzard misses. And now we lose. Oh, we don't. So, yeah, that went badly. To be fair, so did Nidoking, and yet we somehow both times got a first try victory. I don't really know what to say about that battle. Lapras, we're going to need a 2-hit KO. I could go back to the Celadon Mart, buy some calciums. That would probably work. I don't really know. Anyway, we're now going to move on to Bruno. Bruno's going to be pretty easy. I'm not really going to pretend like there's any chance Bruno could be difficult. I can use Ice Beam or Bubble Beam against Onix number 1. I can use Thunderbolt against Hitmonchan. It is luckily a one-shot. Hitmonlee wasn't though, and so it got to use Mega Kick. But that's probably the only attack Bruno's going to use. We knock out Onix number 2. Machamp could use Submission. Thunderbolt doesn't do all that much. We get Leer. Earthquake almost knocks it out. Another Leer. Okay. Once again, we're seeing that Nidoqueen's worst offensive statistics, specifically its attack, it's making a couple of these a little less consistent. I actually don't think it's going to matter versus Agatha. It shouldn't. We're also a level lower for some reason. I'm not really sure how that happened. Anyway, against Gengar number 1, we outspeed. That's huge. We one-shot. We're level 59. Ice Beam doesn't one-shot, and Haze removes my badge boost. So we might not outspeed Gengar number 2. We do outspeed Haunter and knock it out with Earthquake. We do outspeed Arbok and knock it out with Earthquake. And we don't outspeed Gengar, but it uses Toxic. Now, ordinarily with a Ground-type Pokemon, I'd be super worried against Lance, but we're going to outspeed and one-shot Gyarados with Thunderbolt. So I'm just going to use an Elixir. We didn't take any damage versus Agatha, and I don't think we'll take any damage versus Lance. It's just Aerodactyl that we're worried about. So, Gyarados, we outspeed with Thunderbolt, and now we should one-shot everything else. Oh! That's not a big deal. Dragonair can only go for Agility, and we do knock it out with a second Ice Beam. I could have deleted Bubble Beam and Top Blizzard. In fact, I might do that for the champion. Aerodactyl comes out, Supersonic misses. That was like the only thing I didn't want to see. And Lance can only go for Barrier Agility. Why? We're a poison type. Their psychic moves, Gen 1 is weird. Okay, so now we've made it to the champion. I'll use my Rare Candy because why the heck not? And like I said, I'm going to teach Blizzard because we could use extra damage. And last time Executor was the scariest Pokemon, but I'm actually really scared of Alakazam here. Do we outspeed? We probably don't. Without Badge Boost, this is going to be tough, but hopefully things go okay. So I'm going to go for Blizzard against Pidgeot. We don't knock it out. Wow. Okay. Thankfully, Wing Attack doesn't do all that much, but that's really bad. All right. Now out comes Alakazam. That's what I don't want to see. Oh, no. And now Earthquake. All right. Another Reflect. Yes. Okay. We got this. Maybe we got this. I don't know. That was good. I'm not going to take any chances. Let's just go for Blizzard against Rhydon. We knock it out in one hit. All right. Arcanine is next. We're going to go for Earthquake. Knock it out in one hit. We outsped, obviously. Now Executor. It's going to try to put us to sleep. Blizzard, please somehow one-shot. Oh, we got a crit. No, it doesn't one-shot. Yes, we freeze. We got a freeze. And a crit. What are the chances of that? All right, even if Blastoise hits with Hydro Pump, it needs to crit to win. We get Thunderbolt, no crit, Hydro Pump. Wait, it's going to be close. Yes, and a whole lot of yes. All right, that was fun. Stupid, but fun. And where does that put Nidoqueen? Because that was really dumb. And it was a first try victory. And our level is lower. And our time is lower. So, was this better than Nidoking? Honestly, yeah. I made way more mistakes in this run. I could have actually played a lot better. And it still ended up being about 4 minutes faster. Nidoking had every advantage, and yet Nidoqueen was able... It's not like it had a good matchup versus Brock. It still was using a normal move. Is it better than Gengar, though? That's tough, but I'm going to say no. Gengar was at level 59, and it was way more consistent, and I played it earlier when I didn't know as much about the game. So, I am going to keep Gengar in the top 3 of non-Mewtwo Pokemon, but Nidoqueen is going to be in the top 5 of all Pokemon. Now, there are a few Pokemon left that have a chance of knocking Nidoqueen out of the top 5. Poliwhirl might do it, if you can believe it. Yes, Poliwhirl, not Poliwrath. But we'll have to see about that one. I don't know if that's the next run I'm going to do, but that's one I'm very curious about. And of course, everyone thinks Starmie is going to do it. There's only one way to find out. Subscribe and watch tomorrow, because there'll be another video. What's it going to be? I have no idea. This month has been crazy for me. Take care.